I've talked about the battle for the soul of America since the very beginning of this campaign. And I want to be very clear in these closing days about what I mean and about what I intend to do in that battle to assure that our better angels prevail over our worst instincts.
My fellow Americans, tonight, with a heart full of gratitude and boundless optimism, I profoundly accept this nomination for President of the United States.
I believe this election is about who we are as a nation, what we believe, and maybe most importantly, who we want to be. It's about our essence. It's about what makes us Americans.
This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. And yet, despite all of our greatness as a nation, everything we have achieved is now in danger.
It's that fundamental. Time and again throughout our history, we've seen charlatans, the con men, the phony populists who sought to play on our fears, appeal to our worst appetites, and pick at the oldest scabs we have for their own political gain.
Thank you. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. This is the most important election in the history of our country.
Hello and welcome back to Politics Relaxed Podcast. We have a very exciting episode. It's the US election special, but first, we have some new people joining the podcast today. Sam is here, and we've also got Daniel, as well as Lily, Piers, Cameron, and then I'm Felix. So we'll start with, if you were in the election, who would you be voting for and why? Does anybody want to start? All right, Daniel, let's go to you.
Well, I mean, they don't seem great, either of them, but I'd go for Biden then, simply because he's not Trump, because, like, Trump, he's not doing very well at handling coronavirus for a start. There's, like, so many deaths in USA and cases. I'm not sure how many they've got, but I know it's in the hundreds of thousands, I think, of coronavirus deaths. And he's, he's not very good at handling the Black Lives Matter. He's angering a lot of people, and he's been like making a lot of relationships with other countries worse, with like just like comments and his attitude and all that. I'll just get in the coronavirus deaths for you. It is 229,000 coronavirus deaths in the US. But let's go to Sam. What do you want to say?
Well, if I was able to vote, I'd obviously vote Biden. Trump's record, obviously, with coronavirus, with 229,000 Americans dying, is obviously poor. He is a racist. He's transphobic. He's homophobic. He's a misogynist. So giving my vote to Trump would basically me be supporting those policies. So obviously I wouldn't want to do that. So I'd therefore vote Biden.
Playing devil's advocate, though, if you think about it, you're not voting for the person, you're voting for the policy.
Trump's policies are actually, could be argued as racist and transphobic, as I said. And I think Biden would also unite the USA and bring coronavirus rates down across the country and actually bring stable economic growth.
Sure. I'm going to go to, sorry Lily, but I'm going to go to Piers because I think he'll go for the pro-Trump argument, and I think if everyone's just going for Biden, then it'll make it a bit boring, but I will come back to you, Lily, don't worry.
You're a mind reader, Felix. Yeah, sure, I would go for Trump. I mean, I've said before that I don't like either of them, and I think that's the consensus with most people. But of the two main candidates, I'd go with Trump because I don't think it's that revealing to judge their coronavirus. Obviously his coronavirus response hasn't been that great, but we don't know how Biden would have done, so it's difficult to compare them in that aspect. And before 2020, he set up a good, stable economic growth in the US and actually did something about China. Also whoever said that he's been not peaceful with other countries is just wrong, because he set up the peace deals with Israel and Sudan, the UAE and Qatar, is it? As well as North Korea. And we'll see how that goes. But overall, I just think that the allegations against him and all the negative stuff they say is just overblown by the media, and that he's been an okay president until this year.
Yeah, of course, but the next 4 years will probably be dominated by coronavirus, at least for the next 1 or 2. So it is quite an important factor, but I will go now to Lily to respond to that.
I was just going to say, well, I support Biden because by voting for Trump, I'm endorsing white supremacy and extreme blatant sexism. I mean, the man has 26 sexual assault allegations. And coming back to the points that you said, Felix, you're voting for the policy and not the person. But I think if your behaviour's like that and your record's like that, how can you expect that man to be a good president when he's not even a good man? So.
Yeah, of course. I was just playing devil's advocate. That's not actually what I believe. I was just making a question. But Cameron, do you want to make a point?
Well, I am so glad I'm not an American citizen this week and next week, because the choice is horrific, isn't it? You've got Biden, who, to be honest, I mean, he's showing signs of dementia, isn't he? I think we're probably looking at a situation in which you could see him being a puppet for the left-wing socialists of the Democratic Party. And on the other side, you know, you've got Trump. And to be honest, I would normally find myself veering more towards Trump's policies. I think that his specific policies with regards to the economy and on some social issues I agree with. And I think the thing that I find most attractive about Trump is his stance on China. It's something I am passionate more about than anything else in the world today. We need to take a tougher stance on China, and I think he makes that message clearer than any other world leader. And I think in that way he's a good example in terms of how we can build a world in which China are not so dominant. And I think it isn't really for the right reasons, is it? Because we've seen the human rights atrocities committed in China. He doesn't seem to talk too much about that. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, who would I vote for? I have no idea, because I think, I mean, it's just impossible. It's impossible to say, really. From a British perspective, however, now this is the important thing, because I'm not an American citizen, I'm a British citizen, and from Britain's point of view, it would be better, just about better, if Trump got in, because while Trump has guaranteed us an American-British trade deal, Biden has said, and I quote, "We would be back of the queue." Now, I really the special relationship between Britain and America, I find it's the most important relationship in the world. It's the most important international relationship. And if we have a man who wants to wreck that in the White House, I think that's very worrying. But once again, you know, I mean, the other option is Trump. So we're in a really difficult position as a world.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. It's a really tough decision. I don't think there are many people that outright support Biden or that outright support Trump, and Caleb's here. That's quite exciting. But Lily, do you want to go next? I'll say my opinion then. I definitely vote for Biden. I think that he's Trump is a disgusting person. He's racist, sexist, but everyone's already gone over that. But I also think he's a big liar. An independent fact-checking organization, PolitiFact, have measured a lot of his claims, and just 3% of them are completely true, and 9% are mostly true. So he's a liar. I mean, how can we trust a man that has just 3% that are fully truths? Yeah, does anybody want to respond to that? Sorry, I haven't had a look. Anyone want to respond?
Sam.
Yeah, go.
Would you say Biden is a very reliable politician?
I think he's definitely more reliable than Trump. I don't know how reliable he will be, and only time will tell on that. But I do not think that. I think that his word is a lot more truthful than Trump's will be, and yeah. Caleb, do you want to say who you'd vote for, because you're the only one that hasn't responded, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, well, I'm sure none of you will be surprised. I'm in total support of Biden. I think he's just going to bring stability back to the United States, and that's what we need in this time of crisis, in this time of political unrest. Yeah, I mean, Trump is just, you can look at all he's done policy-wise, and as a conservative, you might say, okay, well, he's been a decent president. But the truth is, it's all the other stuff, his character. A lot of his voters, unfortunately, just completely disregard his character. But it's his character. He's not a politician, because politicians understand kind of the constraints of morality in general. But for him, he'll do whatever is best for him. He'll lie. He'll install his cronies into the government, whatever he can do. And I think, there's a real threat if Trump is winning narrowly on election night. He could just, claim, he could instruct all the states to just stop counting. And because these states are Republican controlled, they might, give in, and then they'd stop counting, go to the courts, and it would end up in his Supreme Court. And all of his 3 justices were lawyers in the Bush v. Gore case, so I think it's pretty clear which way they would rule.
Yeah, I mean, you bring on a good point. What will happen if and maybe when Trump loses? Because a lot of people have said he won't accept the result. Does anybody have any ideas on what do you think will happen if Trump were to lose?
Sorry, I'm just coming out here. If Trump were to lose, then he's not, even if he tries to stay in through whatever means he has, literally everyone in his party and the Democrat Party will be against him. No one will support him there if they like democracy. So I can't see any position where Trump stays in after losing, really.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you won't put up a fight. But let's go to Sam.
For Trump to go to the Supreme Court, he actually has to have fundamental evidence that, for example, if he would say, the mail-in votes are fraud, he has to have substantial evidence to actually end up going to the Supreme Court. So he can't make up, again, as we said, lie about such a contentious issue. And I think it would only go to the Supreme Court if it was, let's say, a 270-68 Biden victory, where one state is basically deciding the election, like Al Gore versus George W. Bush in 2000 with the Florida recounting situation.
Move on a bit now to the mail-in ballots. Sam mentioned it a bit. Do we think there's going to be a big problem with mail-in ballots, or will it go as usual? Because it's going to be a very different election night to what we've seen before.
I'm no expert, but there's been allegations against that Minnesotan senator who's been stealing the ballots or anything. I don't know how true those are. But, it's it's going to play a much bigger role than it has in any other election, and I don't know what percentage of the vote it's going to be, but the election, nonetheless, is going to be very close. I mean, the Republicans want to stop the mail-in ballots because apparently they're leveled against them. So, I mean, let's just see what happens.
Yeah, Caleb.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think there are going to be a lot more mail-in ballots than there usually are, and the issue is a lot of states are they can't start counting. This is according to state law. They can't start counting that. Can't start counting the early votes and the ballots until after the polls close on election night. So mail-in votes are always counted last. There's an order. It's like in-person votes, and then mail-in votes are always counted last. So that's the reason why the definitive results won't come out in a lot of cases for the next 3 days after the election. And in the courts, obviously, you have Republicans trying to bring that deadline for sending in the ballots closer to election nights, try and suppress the vote, because they know, obviously, more Democrats vote by mail. So that's what they've been trying to do. And the Supreme Court recently ruled that it was justifiable to have the deadline be you have to have sent the ballot before by election day, and and hopefully they continue that in the most states. But now with the new Supreme Court, you don't know, maybe they could rule you have to have sent it in 4 days before the election.
Yeah, in a recent study by the Brennan Center for Justice, according to them, only 0.0009% of voter fraud in the US at the moment. But I mean, Donald Trump has been very critical of mail-in ballots, and we're going to definitely see a very different election night to normal. But which way does everyone think it's going to go?
My bets are on Biden, just either him being the definitive winner on election day. I mean, this is according to all the probability on 538. If you want, yeah. So I think there's a high chance that he'll be the definitive winner on election night, or the clear winner. I'm just judging by the margins in the states. I mean, if he's leading in any states on election night, after election night, he's almost certainly won, because the mail-in ballots aren't going to go for Republicans.
Yeah, of course. Sam?
I personally see Biden having a comfortable victory. Firstly, as Killer said, using 538, Biden currently has a 9-point national lead over Trump. And yes, people say, in 2016 the polls weren't reliable. People were saying that Hillary Clinton was going to win easily. But these polls have also adjusted for their wrongdoing in 2016. So with Biden leading in almost all of the battleground states, apart from Texas and Ohio, I can't see Trump winning by more than a small margin. So, and even according to 538, Biden has an 88% chance of victory. And if Biden wins Pennsylvania, he's almost basically guaranteed victory. According to 538.
Yeah, it's not looking very tight right now, but you never know. The polls are wrong last time, but they might be wrong again this time. But I'll go to Daniel.
I think no one's gonna comfortably win. I think it's really hard to say, because going into these elections, everyone's been like Trump's the underdog, or at least a lot of people have. But if you see like the stats, even though Trump is still less popular, the last month or two, his popularity has still been slowly rising. So, like, and underdogs, their popularity never rises before anything, like for any election. So, I think it's going to be really tight. I think Biden might just win, but I certainly think it's not going to be a comfortable win for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, Trump would need a big silent majority. But Piers, what do you think?
I agree with a lot with what Mr. The Rapscallion says. It's not going to be close for anyone. I think it's going to be a repeat of 2000, to be honest. Except, I think it's going to be more likely that Biden wins, just because.
Yeah, it's definitely. I don't know. I really don't know. I think it'll be a big win for Biden personally.
It's not going to be a big win. It's gonna be close.
I mean, the polls are saying it's going to be a comfortable Biden victory. So
I think the polls haven't been right.
Come on, even Fox News are saying that Biden will probably win.
2016, 2000, 2004, 2008. The polls have just been wrong.
Yeah, but even when Fox News is saying that Biden might win, then he probably will win. But the Hunter Biden documents, which were lost in the mail, according to
Yes, but they've been found.
Carlson,
they were lost in the mail.
the adult excuse for my dog ate my homework. But Sam, do you want to respond?
No, but they were found.
Sure. Okay. When
They were.
right. Yeah. Okay. Sam.
I think to state that it will be, obviously there's also going to be some caution around the polls, but even the Washington Post, which is an A plus rated poll, came out with a 17-point lead in Wisconsin for Biden, which Trump won in 2016. So I think for Biden to win, he needs to win the Rust Belt. Trump can win all the other battleground states. All Biden needs to win is the Rust Belt. And Biden currently has a 5-point lead, according to 538, across all the states in the Rust Belt. And obviously, someone said all the polls have been wrong between 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016. Actually, the polls were particularly right, especially during the Obama time, in June 2008 and 2012. And in 2016, there was only one state where the polls are wrong by more than 3% swinging each way. So I think the polls aren't going to be wrong by more than 5 to 8% across many states.
Yeah. Caleb, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I mean, I think one noticeable difference between Biden's polling and Clinton's polling is that, Biden in most polls has a 50%, he's showing 50%, 51% support. Whereas in 2016, you had a lot more undecideds. Clinton was up 5, but she only had 46%, 47%. Yeah, and I think it's a completely different climate to 2016, obviously, because Trump is the incumbent. He's the status quo candidate now, and undecided voters, historically tend to swing for the challenger. I think the situation is very different.
Yeah, I think that what we need to build in here is also the unpredictability of the American people, because I think the past has shown that Americans, they can flip-flop a little bit on politics, and despite it looks like Biden has a comfortable lead at the moment, what we've seen in the past is that Trump has got a large amount of silent support. People who move naturally towards his policies, but because they feel as though they will obviously they will improve their own situations, and I think I really would not rule Trump out. I think that would be a very unintelligent thing to do, especially as you could end up feeling a bit sore afterwards.
That Cam was absolutely right with the unpredictability of it, because I think just floating around on social media, it's not many people particularly actually want to vote for Biden. He's just the better of the two candidates. So everyone's like, oh, settle for Biden. So that could change nearer the time. It's just unable to tell.
Yeah, but a lot of the more left-wing part of the Democrats have rallied behind Biden. Many people that would have voted for Bernie are still rallying behind Biden. So that unity might prove vital. But Sam, do you want to respond?
I disagree in the sense when Lily says that we're only choosing Biden, no one really wants to vote for Biden, because again, if you look at the polls, Hillary Clinton had almost a double-digit negative opinion of people. People thought of her, but Biden is actually in the positive percentages. He's like, I think, 8 or 9 points positively rated, where Trump's almost minus 20 negatively rated. So I think Biden as a person isn't hated. He's actually, people generally across America like him a whole lot more than people like Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, Cameron, do you want to respond to me?
Yeah, I just want to respond to that point where you're saying about the left rallying behind Biden. I mean, yes, they have, and the reason for that is because they believe they can control him, and he's shown, I think, recently he seems tired, old, quite weak, and I think Americans are going to find something really unattractive about Biden and the Democrats in this election, and that is that he is really at risk of being taken over, being controlled by the left. And of course, the Americans have a notorious hatred of socialism, communism, and the left in general. So I think for Biden, he's got to really show that he can control that side of the party if he wants to really if he wants to, first of all, if he gets elected, to have the support of the American population throughout his tenure. He's really got to show that he can control the left of his party rather than them controlling him.
Yeah, a lot of people called him a Trojan horse, Bernie Sanders. But yeah, I think that's a great point. All right, thank you for listening to this episode of Politics Relaxed podcast. We should have some reaction on the election on our website. So make sure that you check that out. Thanks for everyone for being here. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you later.